Welcome once again to Signals, a series of interviews where we get to know better the composers whom Duo Signal is collaborating with. And today we have with us Lanqing Ding. Lanqing, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's absolutely a pleasure to have you here. I usually start these interviews by asking you, how would you describe your artistic practice to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm Lanqing. I'm from China. Now I'm based in Paris. I just finished my study in Paris last year. So now I'm working on the contemporary music. I did the acoustic music, like for the ensemble instrument things, and also I did the electronic music a lot. Yes, and I collaborate with some theater music and some staging music and also a film music, etc. Yeah, that's my basic work. Yeah.
So we have instrumental music on one side, we have electronic music, and then some other music for staging as well.
Yes.
Okay, that's quite a lot of variety of the activities. Very good. Um, so now you are in Paris, but before Paris, you studied in Shanghai?
Yes, I did my bachelor and the master in Shanghai, Conservatory of Shanghai. So in Paris, my second master.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess for us, or for the European audience, it's quite interesting to have someone who is coming from China. And I would like to ask you, maybe it's a very big question, but let's see if we can try to answer it more or less in a good way, which is like, which difference do you personally find between China and France, Europe, in terms of classical contemporary music? So in how does that work? How is it different? How the audience may be different in the concerts, etc.
Yes, I think it really depends which aspect. In general, in general environment. For the contemporary music, it's very different because in China, if you want to do contemporary music, especially contemporary music, you should stay in the institution like conservatory, university. Otherwise, you have no chance to do the contemporary, except you are very, 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 very famous.
Yes.
It's possible, but generally no. So that's why I came here, because I found in Europe or France we have more opportunities to do the contemporary music out of the conservatory. There are some foundation, there are some festival to support the young composers. That is very good things for the young composers. That's I think this is the biggest difference for
Mhm.
me generally. But in musically, I think it's not a big difference because it's very simple. It's every composer, they have own aesthetic. They work in their language, their own things. I think it's a normal things. Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, have you, I mean, have the fact of going to France and being in a different musical environment, has that maybe influenced your compositional language somehow?
Yes, I think I can't say very exactly things, concrete things, because it's very subtle things. You are in the different environment, exactly it will be influenced you. It's no adult actually. For me, I think when I'm in here in France, in Europe, as a Chinese composer, I really I think a lot actually. When I think a lot, think more than I was in China. So I what's my music language? It's not like I want to think. It's very spontaneous because I'm here. I think more about this aspect. I'm a Chinese composer. I live in Europe, but I study Western music in China. So it's a little bit complicated, but it makes me think a lot about my music, and I think it showed in my music. It presented in my music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. And then do you also find that your music has any influence from, I mean, either from the Chinese education, in which you studied like Western classical music, or does it have any influences from Chinese traditional music as well? Uh, I really don't know because, of course, I'm not really acquainted with Chinese traditional music, but I've seen that you have used like pipa in a couple of your works, and then it was interesting to know, I mean, if there's some Chinese traditional music influencing your work.
Mm-hmm. I think for this question, I can't avoid that I don't have influence from the Chinese music, but I prefer maybe more bigger, maybe cultural things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I study Western music. Actually, I'm not very familiar with Chinese traditional music. That's a little bit a shame for me because I'm Chinese. But I grew up in China, so basically I have lots of influence from the cultural side, cultural side. Sorry, and so I think for my music, I would like to see my music is influenced more by the Chinese ancient painting aesthetic.
Aha, okay. Very
Yes,
interesting.
yes, that's because I like the Chinese ancient painting very much, the ink painting. It's give me a lot of inspiration in my music. This is the way that I have the influence from the Chinese cultural way. And another way, you mentioned I use the pipa, the Chinese instrument, in my piece. Actually, when I use pipa, this instrument, I didn't think about this is a Chinese instrument. I didn't think about the symbol of the music. I use it more as just as a timbre, because I didn't use it to play the melody or directly a Chinese way to use it. That's also it's my aesthetic. I'm very interested in the timbre things. So each instrument for me, it's totally the same thing. It's acoustic. It's not the background of this instrument. Of course, they have their own background, but for me, I try to reduce the basic background. I just use it as a timbre things. So pipa, I use pipa, but it's not relate very lot with the Chinese culture or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's only for the sake of its timbre and how you can actually use that timbre within your pieces. Yeah, I realized that definitely. I mean, timbre is one of the I'd say that is one of the your main researches in a way in your music. You develop a different techniques in the instrument and achieve like really flourish and powerful sonorities with them. So I have here like maybe two questions, but I want to get into your work with electronics first, because yeah, electronics are a possibility of getting into sound, specifically like very much in depth. So I wanted to ask you first, like when did you started working with electronics, and how did that influenced the way in which you conceive music in general?
I studied electro music quite early. I think it was in 2013 when I did my bachelor in Conservatory of Shanghai. It was the fourth year of my studying in Shanghai. So in Shanghai, the professor, he studied in France before, so he teach us the way of the French way. I don't know if it's the concrete music from the Pierre Schaeffer, this aspect. So this is my first time I studied with electronic music. I think for me, electronic music, just like you said, give us the way to into the sound. It's like science. It's like we zoom out the sound. We just know what exactly happened with the sound. So I think it's for me more. It's like open a new window for me to discover the sound. So I use lots of plugin in the Pro Tools to change the sound. So this give me a lot of timbre. I get lots of new things for my ear. So after that, it's true, I change a lot the way to think about the sound, the timbre. So you can, I don't know, maybe you can listen in my piece. I influenced a lot of effects, actually, effect from the electron music. Then I want to transfer to the real instrument to express it. So yeah, that's how it influenced me.
So you are basically transcribing quotation marks some sonorities that you achieve with electronic music in the instrumental writing.
Yeah, yes.
In a way, orchestrating those sonorities that you are able to find with plugins and with different.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of like maybe structure, or in terms of I don't know, other ways of conceiving music, has it also influenced, or it has been only or mainly in the timbre?
Mainly in timbre. For structure, I don't know. I think about structure, but it's not very precise. Really,
Okay.
follow the planning something. It's very spontaneous. Sometimes I can say that. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you? Okay, let's get into that. So how do you usually? I mean, do you usually plan your piece? I guess so, but do you usually plan your pieces beforehand, or as you say, structure is a bit more like something that you do in the moment, like by developing the material. Let's see if I can express myself a bit better. What I want to ask you is, if you plan like a general structure at first, like let's say we have 20 minutes and we do this during the 20 minutes, or do you find some sonorities that you like and start developing those, and then the structure comes from that development?
I did both.
Okay.
Yes, I don't have an exactly way to develop my structure. Yeah, sometimes I did the general structure and I follow it a little, but it's not exactly really follow completely. Sometimes it starts just a sonority something. Then I try to develop it from this sonority, then make structure. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, of course, we all work in a different way here, and I guess that for each piece, like the process is a bit different, also. Um, and also, what is the? I mean, coming back to electronic music as well, which are the aspects that interest you the most of electronic music? Like maybe live electronics, or is like developing timbre, or maybe the, I don't know, some algorithmic possibilities. What is the?
I did both the like acousmatic, the fixed media, and also I did lots of real time. I work with Max MSP to work with the instruments. The both I all like. But for the fixed media, for me it's totally the timbre. It's a composition for timbre actually. And for real time, I really like to work more with the interaction, and how to match my idea with the instrument and electronic. For example, I have a piece for trumpet with electronic. So the name of the piece is called The Possibilities of Freedom. So this idea from the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi. So he is very he pursue pursue the freedom all the life, and I inspired by an article of him. It's called it's kind of the how to say travel freedom, something like this. I don't know exactly translation. Yeah, and there's a word called infinity in the article that the basic idea influenced me. Because I worked in the ICAM cursus at that period, so I was thinking about infinity actually, because in a different domain we have different definition of the infinity. For example, in mathematics they have their own definition of the infinity, and in philosophy they also have the infinite aspect things. So I think about the music. For me, like the trumpet real sound and the electronic sound, they are infinity actually. It's one is exists in the nature, and then another one is from the speakers and from the computers. For me, it's the two-way. It's infinity. So I discovered this relation between the instrument and the electronic music. So I did a lot of interaction events for the instrument and the computer. I don't know if it's explained.
You explain it really well. So then the instrument is I mean, how do the electronics work there? So is the instrument triggering some the electronics somehow, or is someone controlling the electronics and modifying the sound life? How does it technically work in the case of that piece?
I have some idea about this piece, because normally the musician to play with the electronic, they feel very stressed because they should follow the very exactly the bar, and sometimes they should listen the click, and it's very stressed. So I don't want this. The musician want to feel comfortable. He can control the rhythm of this piece. So I didn't use click. I try to make the events more largely than he can control himself. This is the one aspect of the freedom for the musician. And another one, it's there's a part I only use the mouthpiece of the trumpet. Then he plays the different consonant.
Consonants, yes.
Consonants, yes, like sh,
or consonants, yes.
to trigger the sound that match this consonant. So every time, actually, this piece, every time they play this part, they are not fixed actually, because every time he triggered the different sound will come out from the computer, because we did a lot of recording of all the sound of the trumpet. So I think this is another way for me. It's a freedom for this piece. It's kind of out of control, but I control this.
Yeah, of course. So the trumpet is like triggering. So the computer is recognizing what the trumpet player is doing with the mouthpiece, and depending if the player does like shh or whatever, then the computer recognizes that and triggers some sound.
No, we record we recorded lots of sound of the trumpet. It's not only this. So it's kind of the, how to say, it's a container, the sound of the trumpet. But I did the, how to say, granular. I cut all the sound, very small pieces. So there is a, I don't know, it's plugin or something in the Max developed by Ezquerra. So it's called Kata. So they can find the same target somehow, same thing. Then I played like they can find the common target with the sound in the container. Then out they have the relation, actually relation with the player who he played. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a really no, I mean that's a really good concept, and also like trying to treat in this case like how to release yourself from the limits of having to play with a click track, as you say, that the player can be, I mean, they are usually stressed by it because the click track doesn't doesn't forgive, just goes forward and you have to follow it. So that's a really good way of trying to make both things interact. And well, in a more general way, is that freedom also something that you develop in your instrumental music, or not really?
Sometimes.
How do you approach it? How do you do it?
Not very much, but
it's okay. So you don't. I mean, the pieces that I sing from you, they are usually very carefully notated, and they are relatively strict. So everything is there. The thing is, have you done maybe something with maybe a more open structure in a way, or you are not interested in that?
No.
Oh, really? You want everything to be very accurate and
yes, for me, if the piece for the musician, I want to write everything what I want. It's very less space for the musicians, actually. But I very like to do the improvisation. But for me, improvisation is not really composition. So I can do improvisation, but once I do the real composition, I will very how to say precise to notate what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you maybe use improvisation in the first steps of your compositions, maybe?
Yeah, sometimes, yes, I do some improvisation. Yeah, then once I start to compose, it's kind of I got some inspiration. Then I develop this material with the composition way.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this question because hopefully there's some friends of mine seeing this, because I had like some discussion about this with some friends regarding the difference if they were saying kind of like improvisation is composition real time. And I was like, well, I disagree with that statement. So I want to ask you, maybe this is a very tricky question, but let's see. Why are not the same thing? Which difference do you find, or how would you differentiate between composition and improvisation?
Was it different?
How, I mean, you said that they are not the same. For you, improvisation is something, and composition another thing. I had some friends who said, no, improvising is composing in the moment. So do you agree with that, or do you think that is not true?
It's really depends who.
Okay, good.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe there if composer do the improvisation, I believe it's a composition real time. I think this word is very very good word. Composition real time. Yeah, I like it. I don't know, but maybe for musicians, they have more maybe enjoy the moment more. Maybe I don't know, because when I start to do some improvisation, I already as a composer, so
Right.
change my mind, yeah, to only the musician way to think about improvisation. I think it really depends. Yeah, for composer, maybe they have this, how to say, this concept to compose real time. Yeah, so I agree
And disagree at the same
halfway.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I know it's a complicated topic in the end as regarding
Yeah.
aesthetics. But yeah. Okay. Now I want to ask you a bit about the work, your work for Duo Signal. So could you explain us how this collaboration started, and yeah, how did you get to know Duo Signal, etc.?
Yeah, I know Dual Signal. I think before I start work with them, I know them before, but not personally, because just I know it on the website, and I have a friend. He worked with them, so that I know them. And for me, I applied the residence in potteries in Spain. So the festival, they work with the Dual Signal. They they choose a composer to work with this the occasion. So that's why we start work. And now actually now I rework for this piece, because at that moment in June, we decide to maybe we can develop it more for this piece, develop it longer for this piece. So now I rework for this piece, make it longer. This is the question, or
Yes.
you okay? Yeah.
Yeah. That was the question, like how you met them. So yeah, you did this residency there in Spain, and then now you are like working with them again in order to make the piece longer, because yeah, there were like more ideas that you wanted to develop there. Also, I mean, how did you find writing for this duo of instruments? There was anything particularly challenging about writing for trombone and saxophone?
Yeah, it's very challenging.
In which way it is challenging? How did you find it?
It's these two instruments. It's very different, and this combination is kind of I can't say strange. It's kind of it's really a challenge for composer. It's not only the different family. Yeah, the timbre, the everything. The only comment, I think, it's a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
Okay, so for you, since you mentioned they are different, was in terms of timbre and achieving like that they melt together, what do you find difficult maybe? Or challenging, or not difficult, challenging? Or was it the nature of the instruments, or in the registers that they can play or cannot play? Because of course, like instruments are limited naturally. So
Yes, I write for baritone, saxophone, and trombone, because this idea from the piece called Dorian Gray.
aha, okay, yes.
It's a character from the novel of the Wild. It's called A Picture of Dorian Gray. Basically, the story is very for me, it's very contradictive. Contradictive. But this is the one character. It's very contracted. The one character with very two side. It's a beauty and ugliness at the same time, and at the end he destroyed the two both. Yes, so for me, I feel like it's like life. We live in the very contradictory basically general. Yes, and so I choose the baritone and the trombone. Baritone because I think they are they have lots of common register. Yeah, so it's kind of, we can imagine it's like one character. It's a very symbolic, no?
It's symbolic. No, okay, but it makes sense, and also makes sense in the depiction of Dorian Gray's story. So
so yeah. And at the same time, they have different timbre. Yeah, so that's why I write this piece, use this idea. And also it's kind of a series
yes,
of my piece, because I use the different name, different people's name for the piece.
In which do you mean representing it musically or as a title of a section, or
title? Yes,
title of the sections. Okay.
Yes, because just before this, I wrote a piece. It's called Munch. Munch is Edward Munch. He's the painter from the Norwegian. Yes, Norwegian. So it's kind of the small series, but yeah, it's just matched.
Who would? Okay, so you have Edward Munch there. You have like Dorian Gray, who also have like a picture, like a painting of himself. Is like painting like a main topic for your current works in a way?
Yes, it's a good way. I didn't see.
I don't know. I'm trying to see here, like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a coincidence, but it's maybe.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Dorian Gray is more for. I mean, you already mentioned that several, like, also that you got influence from this Chinese philosopher and the concept of infinity. Now Dorian Gray, which is it is a novel story. So literature is quite important actually for you to get influence there.
Yes, true. Yeah.
And in which way does it influence your work? I mean, do you take inspiration and you try to represent the topics of the work that you read, or is more like a general impression of the work? How do you metabolize that influence of literature?
There are different way, I think. Sometimes I influenced. Sometimes for example, I read the poem, or I read the poem or novel. Sometimes I influenced by the sound from the literature. For example, I wrote a piece for Chinese poem. It's all about reflection, actually, the echo, the reflection of the sound, and also reflection of the light. So this is the basic idea of this poem. So I inspired more about the sound, the echo things in the mountain, something. Yeah, and also I have another piece inspired in this way. So the sound give me some very strong inspiration actually to makes me to write the piece. But also there are some emotion from the literature. For example, Dorian Gray, it's a kind of the emotion things for me to reflection on what I'm thinking about after read this novel. And also I read a book. I write a piece for I remember for the strings and That's it's the emotion from the massacre of the Nanking. So yeah, this is the emotion to push me to write the piece. So there are different way, but I'm really like to get the inspiration from the literature, because it's very it's very rich. The literature, they include lots of things of the world. So sometimes it's really helps me to have some idea. But normally, sometimes I also write just for sound, especially for the electronic music. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much for sharing all these thoughts, sharing this way in which literature influenced you. It is quite inspiring. And well, I wrap up here the interview. I could be talking with you for a long time, but we have a limited span of time. But it was a pleasure to have you here, Lanqing, and looking forward to listening to your piece on Elements of Tone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.